Here are 5 things that you need to know before you enter A-levels. I sat my last GCSE paper 599 days ago, which was a chemistry paper 6 if I'm not wrong. The only unfortunate thing is that I had no one to guide me. Naturally, I made a lot of mistakes, and I mean a lot. So having made those mistakes, here are 5 of the best tips that I can give you so that you do not repeat the same mistakes as me and everyone else. By the way, if you're new to the channel, my name is Ayan, and I started this channel 7 months ago, and ever since then, I've helped thousands and thousands of students improve their grades and become more productive. So if you'd like to be one of them, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And let's get back to the video. Tip number 1. Starting in the summer itself. A lot of people, when they finish their GCSEs, they end up saying, oh, I've studied GCSEs for 2 years now. It's about time I get a break. Unfortunately, let me be the bearer of bad news for you. You might have won the battle, but you've not won the war. Because the next 2 years of your life is going to be A-levels. Now, you might say, oh, it's only going to be 3 or 4 subjects. I don't have to study, 8, 9, 10, whatever many subjects you're doing in GCSEs. But let me tell you the honest truth. Those 3 to 4 subjects are going to be much more harder than those 7 to 8 subjects or however many GCSE subjects you're taking combined. So when you start in the summer itself, it makes things easier for you, and time is money. When you have enough time, everything becomes 10 times easier. So once you finish GCSEs, you can take a break for a few weeks, but I don't recommend going any higher than that, because a lot of people, what they do, they take all 3 months off and they say, this is my relaxed time. But when they end up going to A-levels, they find it really hard. So what I would recommend you do is take a break for 3 weeks. And then after that, it doesn't have to be a lot. You can study 1 hour a day of A-level content. And by the time summer ends, you're going to be so far ahead that you might have even completed 50% of the syllabus already. So 1 hour a day is all I'm saying. Go ahead and give it a try. You still have time to do all other stuff. Just let me put this into perspective, right? I'm going to assume that you wake up on 10 during the holidays. That still gives, and you sleep at 12. So that still gives you that gives you 14 hours of you being awake. Now, just think of this yourself. 14 hours. You can't sacrifice 1 hour just to study. It is so easy to just get that 1 hour in. So what you have to do is just study 1 hour of one subject every single day after those 3 weeks of break have ended, and things will become so much easier for you. I wish I did that. But yeah, if you do it, it will only benefit you in the future. So start early and retain your consistency, because consistency is so important. I will talk about consistency later on in the video as well. Now, the second thing that you want to take care of when you go from GCSEs to A-levels is your consistency and how organized you are. Back in GCSEs, you could get away with a lot of stuff, memorization, all of that stuff. It was way easier. But when you come to A-levels, every single thing you do will come back to bite you. So it's very important that you have a structure that allows you to, get enough studying done per week, and also have a social life with friends, going for football, whatever it may be. It is very important that you have a healthy work-life balance. I also can't stress how important it is that you do your research before you actually enter A-levels about different stuff. Basically your resources. So YouTube channels, websites, notes, past paper questions, whatever it is, you want to gather all of that resource within the summer itself, because if you're scrambling to look for it when A-levels actually start, you're going to have a pretty hard time. So what you want to do is you want to already have all of the resources that you need for A-levels ready for you when you enter year 12. Everything counts as a resource, and it can potentially even help you, level up your grade. So you want to have everything that you possibly need in one place. So do your research before you enter A-levels, have all of your resources, make a good schedule, and have a very good sleep routine, because sleep is very important. And if you do all of that stuff, I promise you A-levels will become much easier for you. Point number 3 is consistency. Now, I'll say this a lot, but consistency is very important when it comes to A-levels. Studying one subject for just 1 hour a day is far better than studying 3 subjects on the same day for 5 hours or whatever it may be, because how you spread your revision out is so much more important, because cramming does not work. And I promise you, I've crammed many times, even in A-levels I've crammed. It does not work, because what happens is that, okay, fine, you might retain information for a day, but immediately after that you're going to start forgetting, and that's where a lot of people go wrong as well. How much you retain doesn't actually depend on how much you study, but it rather depends on like how efficiently you're studying. People who have a set routine and know exactly how they want to study a particular subject will do much better than people who, you know, end up cramming or even like study but with like inconsistently or with like poor study techniques. So it all comes down to how you actually study and how consistent you are with that studying. So just study 1 to 2 hours every single day, and it will pay off much more than, you know, cramming or stressing last like a month or two before your actual exams. If you start from day one, you're gonna have everything much more easier. It's going to be like a smooth ride for you the whole time because you're staying consistent, you're, you know, revising every single day, and everything just becomes much easier. And I shouldn't have to say this, that, oh, you know, studying like the whole year is better than studying 2 months before the exam. It should be common knowledge, but unfortunately that's what everyone does. Everyone like starts panicking like 2 months before the exam. Oh, I'm not completed with my syllabus, I gotta do these past papers. Don't do that. Just start from day one. It will be much easier and you'll finish much earlier, so you'll have a lot of room to do past papers as well. It is genuinely common sense, but a lot of people miss on that. Now, point number 4 is focus on understanding. Unlike GCSEs, A-levels is much more conceptual. I remember when I was in GCSEs, for chemistry and physics especially, I got away with a lot of memorization. So all I did was memorize the marking scheme. And trust me, and it becomes easier when you're in GCSEs because all they ask, the type of questions they ask is like, even if you memorize it, you'll know the answer because the questions are so straightforward. But when you come to A-levels, good God, it is not like that. It is all conceptual based. And although you might like find some questions that, you know, are like, what you say is that you can memorize them and then immediately write the answer. Those are like the definition type questions, but majority of the questions require you to, you know, think critically and just understand the topic itself. A lot of questions are twisted in a way that, you know, you'll only be able to like answer the question if you truly understand the topic. If all you've done is crammed and like memorized the important points, there's no way that you're going to be able to answer those questions. That's why understanding is like the most important thing, because you can memorize, but that doesn't guarantee you every single mark. If you understand and memorize, you're pretty much guaranteed, because then you're in the exam. If they twist a question and they ask something differently to what was originally in the textbook, you know, you can manipulate different information to suit whatever the question they're asking. So make sure that when you're studying, instead of just memorizing, you're actually doing your best efforts to understand why a particular thing is happening. Question everything, especially in physics and chemistry. If you question something that, oh, how, why, when, who found this theory out, why did they find this theory out, what experiment were they doing, and then you go into YouTube and actually look at those experiments, you're gonna start to like, stuff will start clicking in your brain. You're gonna have a eureka moment where you're gonna be like, oh, that's how it works. So when you do that, it becomes much easier for you. Last but not least is past papers. Let me tell you something. The more past papers that you do, the easier it becomes. Seems kind of obvious, right? Well, as much as you may truly learn a topic, you will never actually understand unless you do past paper questions. The papers test your concept to an extent where you say, what the hell is this? How am I supposed to, figure this out in an exam hall? So the more past papers that you do, the more you're going to get a hang of it. You're going to understand what the marking scheme actually wants of you, what the question is asking you. It becomes much more easier the more you do. But do not stop at a particular number until your exam. Do as many past papers as you can. I don't care if it's like from 2007 or whatever. Question is question, so do as many as you can, obviously within staying the limits of your syllabus. Another thing that past papers do, and I've seen this a lot, especially in edexcel chemistry, is that they sometimes like to ask questions that are not in the syllabus and not in the textbook either. So the only way that you would know is by going out of the box and having no idea whether you're correct or wrong. Basically, they ask questions that you would have no idea and you just have to figure it out. Those questions are only worth 1 or 2 marks, so you won't lose a lot of it, but they still do ask them. And I remember, I can show you an example of what they asked me. They asked me to name a waxy solid, which was nowhere to be found in my textbook or in any other past papers that I did. So in the exam hall, I was like, why are they asking me this? I've never studied this. I thought I was just going like insane in the exam hall. But when I came out, I asked a couple of my friends. None of them knew what it was. And when the marking scheme like finally released, like 3 or 4 months later, I checked, it was polyethylene. and there was no way in hell that I would have gotten that correct. So there are just some questions that you might know that they might ask from, GCSEs. It is very important that you do not forget whatever you learned in GCSEs, because they will still assume in A levels that you already remember all of it. So the questions they ask that are kind of out of syllabus, I want you to write them down somewhere along with their answer, just so that in the near future, if they ask them again, you already do remember it because you wrote it down somewhere. And time yourself as well, because time management is so incredibly important that I cannot stress it enough. Because when you're doing papers, time flies by like this. Like, there's nothing that you can do, and you'll start rushing your paper. So you want to have a strategy that you can use in the paper. So for example, the strategy that I had was leave every single question that is taking me longer than a minute, and I'll come back to that at the end, and just try to complete the paper as fast as possible, leaving the questions that you don't understand, and come back to them if you have time, because you're on limited time and there's no point in wasting that time. So when you're doing policy papers, the best thing that you can do is time yourself, so that when you're actually in the exam, you have a good idea on how much time you should be taking on each question, and so that you do not run out of your time limit. A levels is actually pretty easy if you navigate your way through it properly, stay consistent, and work really, really hard. Your hard work actually matters more than how smart you are, because I know smart people who did not work hard and still ended up getting bad grades, but I also know that people who are not extremely intelligent, I don't want to say dumb, but not extremely intelligent, but since they worked extremely hard, they got what they wanted. And I've seen people go from an A star in GCSEs to a B in AS level, and I've seen people go from a C or a D in GCSEs to an A or A star in A level. So it doesn't depend on how smart you are, just how hard you work. So give it your all and achieve the dream grades that you want. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and leave a like on this video. You can also subscribe to the channel, and you can check out this video on how to actually use an iPad when you're in A levels, and you can also check this video out about why A levels are so hard. I'll see you with another video next week. Thank you so much for watching. Take care and goodbye.